And now for our first lecture of the evening, Securing the Law Firm, Data and Cybersecurity. Please welcome Jennifer Dukarski.
Well, hello, everybody. What a transition, a little bit of safety dance to talking about a little bit of safety with respect to cybersecurity. Now, taking a look at the agenda, when I had the first opportunity to kind of peruse where the cybersecurity topic was going to be, I saw that it was right up front, and I thought, fantastic. We're going to start out this session by scaring everybody to death. I think that's just a fantastic way to kick off any event. Okay, there's my bad joke for the day. So let's get rolling and truly talk about the impact of cybersecurity and data in general, and how that really has fundamentally changed over the last few years for all of our practices. Don't have to put too much context in really what's going on in the world today. COVID has done us no favors from a standpoint of where we're at in security land. Ransomware demands from 2019 to 2020 went from $115,000 average demand to $312,000. You have situations where people who don't even pay the demands. If you may remember, the city of Baltimore got hacked. The original demand there was $100,000, and to remediate, it cost them over $18 million. So we're really dealing with kind of that ransomware insanity, and you hear ransomware attacks all the time. But now you're starting to hear different things. You're hearing about the GDPR, you're hearing about data protection and a lot of requirements with respect to protecting the information that's conveyed to us. Whether we're in the healthcare practice or deal with healthcare data, the ability to protect that data, the ability to protect credit cards and payment information from our clients, or even transactions that we help facilitate on behalf of our clients. All of this information, all of this data needs to be secured, protected, and really truly addressed in the modern practice of law. And to kind of look at it holistically, I think we really should look at a few of the major trends that are kind of arcing today. First off, these hackers, the bad guys, they really have boned up on their professionalism. They have gotten to the point where malware, kind of that evil bad, the bad actions, malware is a service. Absolutely, you would be blown away by the fact that hackers have IT desks, they have help desks that you can call when you get attacked. And for those who are actually going into that line of work, there are the equivalent of, I guess, underground 401ks, because there's truly an org structure like a normal business when it comes to ransomware and it comes to hacking today. So you have a lot more sophisticated business-oriented, business-styled entities perpetrating a lot of these attacks. And who are they looking for? Well, when we used to think about attacks, you would think, well, somebody wants to get someone's credit card number and go run up, $50 or $100 or $1,000 at a store someplace. That's not the modality of today's attack. That's not the business mind anymore. People in the hacking world are less interested in stealing consumers' personal information, and they're more interested in trying to get to business sensitive information. Things like business plans, business designs, particularly anything in the technology realm, or anything that might be strategic in the sense of what a business is doing. And why do they want that? Well, they want to attack businesses because they just have a greater opportunity to draw in those larger payouts. That's how we get from 115,000 to 300,000. Those documents, if you don't pay, there is a good chance that those documents are going to be released. More and more of those attacks come with that fundamental threat that your personal information, your business information, or for us as a law firm, the information that we collect and maintain on our systems would be put out and available to the public. And if you've been reading the journals, or if you've seen in the news over the last couple of years, that's happened on more than one occasion. Now, some of the newer twists and turns that we're seeing hackers are now actually threatening bodily harm against the people who they are taking their information, people within the business. And they're threatening you not to reach out to law enforcement authorities. They're threatening you not to reach out to the FBI. That's sort of a new trend and a new spin that we're seeing that is coupled with this releasing of data in really public places that you wouldn't want things to go. So where are we at from the perspective of why are these things happening? What are the most easy ins? Now, today, I'm not giving you a checklist to take back to your IT teams and say, please, IT guys, look for these 5 things. I'm really going to go broad brush so we understand kind of the scope. This is what's going on. We know that this is more business oriented. People are looking for more business information, and they're threatening to release data if they don't get payouts. So that's kind of where we're at today and where the movement is. But why is that movement there? Where are the vulnerabilities? What security issues? We used to talk about all the time how our biggest vulnerability is our people. And that hasn't changed, but the modality has changed a little. One of the biggest, and actually over the last few years, the biggest threat is system misconfiguration. Believe it or not, when you set things up, when you get your email servers set up, when you have your firewalls set up, when you have your technology set up, one of the biggest faults is misconfiguration, either leaving the default settings or something going wrong below the scenes that wasn't changed, wasn't tweaked, allowing for just an easy on-ramp for the bad guys to come in, to exfiltrate your files, so they have all of our clients' information now available to potentially release to the general public. Number 2, one of the big attack areas is our friends, the managed service providers. So anytime that you're hiring a service provider to provide you those particular services, whether it's server space, it's those attacks. For anyone who's seen within the healthcare realm, we've seen multiple attacks, for example, on Kasamba and some of the EHR data servers. Those companies are the ones getting attacked. So we can continue to look for anyone with whom we source our information, with whom we store our information, to be potential victims and truly, really the targets within our areas of practice. And finally, it is a thing, employees working from home. A lot of lax protocol goes on when you're working remotely. The opportunity to not necessarily dig in or dive into your systems to make sure everything is being operated in a good and secure manner. Just envision the fact if somebody's remoting in, but they save a file to their local computer and that local computer gets hacked. Now you have that data at issue, at risk. So employees working from home, people who are clicking on those links, who are concerned, the latest and greatest on the pandemic, where to get a free test kit, where to get free KN95 masks, those links, one click, and that's all that it takes. It puts all of us in jeopardy, and it's really easy to see how people are preying on those fears, especially at this time as we're kind of hopefully rounding a corner and heading back into a more moderated reality. But those fears are still out there. And that leaves that number 3 area, employees working from home, people who are truly concerned, who just click a wrong link, a bad link, or have files saved locally. So that's really where a lot of this is coming from. So how do we get ourselves into a better spot? Oh, I promised you that I wasn't going to give you the tick list to give to the folks who are in IT, but let me give you a couple things just so I can say that you've got a couple tips. First off, these are tips that we've been talking about. Anyone in security has been talking about them for the last 10 years. So everything I'm about to say is absolutely nothing new. We want to make sure we have data backed up, adequately stored on a server somewhere. All law firms should have incident response plans. What happens if a security incident or question does arise? There should be training for all employees, whether you're using something like the Know Before system or another mode of training. That kind of activity can truly help stop and prevent activities and attacks. We want to make sure that we're continuously updating antivirus and anti-malware software. Believe it or not, that's still a very successful way to mitigate some of the easier threats that are out there. And finally, don't poo-poo encryption. I know a lot of people tend to think, my goodness, I have to click here and select 15 different things to get online. despite the fact that you need to do that, that truly is an excellent opportunity to try to prevent some of these attacks in a very easy and a very effective way. And believe me, if you're rolling this out to your teams and you have a couple of folks on the team who are upset about it, it's only a few seconds worth of time. They'll get accustomed to it. So from a standpoint, it's those easy tips that we've always been talking about in cybersecurity land that really will help avoid and mitigate some of those challenges that we talked about. But really, what are we seeing in litigation today? And I'm going to kind of jump to the thought of what are law firms specifically seeing? And really, there have been two lines of cases when we don't have those protections in place and when we do see attacks roll out. And those are, number one, fraudulent wire transfers, and number two, some of the fiduciary duty risks and the risk of malpractice. So first, just kind of summing up the notion of fraudulent wire transfers for anyone who hasn't been involved with one of these, either for a client or with your firm yourself, you're probably in a very lucky position, but it's something that can easily happen. We like to call these man-in-the-middle attacks. Essentially, it's where someone hacks into someone's system, whether it's the payor or the payee. Someone gets the account, redirects it, and says, please just send this money to our new bank account. They may be spoofing an email, they may be in the system and redirecting email, but they provide a new account, and voila, whatever funds were destined to you are now gone. There was a 2018 case that in this particular situation, the law firm was the one that was left holding the bag during a man-in-the-middle attack. So from that standpoint, as lawyers with a duty to kind of understand some of the basics, particularly when we're running our firm, it's something that you want to make sure you have protocols for. Anytime you see new information that requires a wire transfer to a new number, you want to make sure that you're not minutes away, or if you can catch it, minutes away is better than making the transfer, from shifting IOLTA funds from one account to another just because you got some bad information through a man-in-the-middle attack. So we're seeing more and more man-in-the-middle attacks make their way into litigation. So we'll keep an eye on that one in the coming years. But also we've got these new cases and lines of cases that are challenging law firms with the notion of malpractice and with the notion of breach of fiduciary duty in the case of hacks. There's a 2020 case that denied a motion to dismiss when a law firm had allegedly been prompted of a risk of data breach and a risk of an attack, yet didn't do enough allegedly and failed to protect, and again, this is allegedly, had failed to protect against a hacking attack. And what ended up happening, again, it was a motion to dismiss, it was denied. So onward went the case, leaving the position for the law firm where accountability was on the line, the risk was on the line, and we're seeing a lot more responsibility delegated onto firms in the case that somebody does hack the system and your data is exposed or a client's data is exposed. So really, with those two areas in mind, we need to keep an eye out for what's going on. We need to keep things in consideration. So I want to point out to you, particularly for us here in Michigan, Rule 1.1 on competence. If you haven't paid attention to the comments, part of the reason we're having this little kind of scare you to death talk to kick things off is the rule of competence. We need to maintain the requisite knowledge and skill, and that includes what's reasonably necessary to provide competent representation, including technology. So keeping in mind that all of these issues, all of these things are really critical, especially in the days of all of the data protection laws that I'd mentioned briefly earlier. We really want to be holistic in what we do. We don't want to bury our head in the sand, and we want to make sure we do the right thing when a breach happens, or really truly before a breach happens. And we do that by making sure we have a plan in place. We do that by making sure that we have training. We truly need to treat ourselves just like we treat our clients. We often recommend to our clients the training aspect. We recommend vendor checklists. The ABA has a phenomenal vendor checklist written by folks here, even in the state, within the state of Michigan. One of my colleagues is one of the authors of the vendor checklist. Feel free and circle back with me. I'm happy to talk with you more about that. But we need to vet our vendors. We need to educate our coworkers and colleagues. And we need to be prepared, because truly law firms of the future are going to be the targets of these attacks, because we have data that is far more interesting than the personal data of old. So be prepared. Don't be frightened, but be ready when that attack comes. And I look forward to seeing the rest of the sessions, and I'm really grateful to have had this opportunity today. And I will pass the baton back to the Detroit Club.
Thank you very much, Jennifer Dukarski, for an excellent lecture on cybersecurity.